So, the session today is about whose business are you in? I know the topic doesn't sound very clear or whatever, but I really like this topic because usually we don't understand whether it's my business or your business or whose business. So, we've typically heard this saying, don't poke your nose into my business, correct? So, the point is, don't worry about what they are doing. Worry about why are you worried about what they are doing. So when there is a situation, we usually worry about what someone else is doing, what my neighbor is doing, what my friend is doing. The point is, don't worry about what they are doing. Rather, worry about why am I worried about what they are doing, right? So there are three kinds of business: my business, your business, and God's business. So much of the stress comes from living out of your own business, which means each time I'm interfering in someone else's business and living out of my own business, that's when stress happens. So, for instance, if I'm going to say, oh, you are so irresponsible, you need to get a better job, you spoke to me rudely, you, each time we are saying you need to do this, you are too lazy, which means I am in your business. So whenever you catch yourself saying a you statement, understand that I am in someone else's business. Also, why is coronavirus happening? Why death is happening? When will death happen? Why earthquake? All these kind of questions is I am in God's business. So there are three types of business, which is my business, your business, and God's business. Are we clear on this? So whenever you are in a situation, the first question that you need to ask yourself, I mean, typically whenever you're in a problematic situation, so-called problem situation, the first thing you can ask yourself, is this my business? Okay. So suffering happens when we get out of our business and get into someone else's business. So how do we deal with problem situations? Step one, awareness. So become aware of whether it's your business, which we become aware of, which is this my business, your business, or God's business. So maybe for a minute, just close your eyes and ask yourself, am I going through an issue or a problem or a situation that I'm not able to handle? Okay, just close your eyes, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, am I going through a situation which is either a problematic, difficult, or I'm not able to handle? And there could be one or more situations, doesn't matter. Once you're aware of this, open your eyes, take a sheet of paper and divide it into three columns: my business, your business, and God's business. And put these situations in respective columns. So take about 2 minutes to do this. And the situation could be anything. Who's going to cook? I can't cook. God knows, whatever this is. The cook didn't come, or I can't step out. I'm not able to travel. Any situation. I'm getting bored. Whatever the situation is, put it down into these three respective columns: my problem, your someone else's problem, or God's problem. Okay, once you've finished, just become aware that just by doing this simple exercise, you will feel much lighter and more present to your own problem. Yeah. So, for instance, if I'm constantly saying to my son, for instance, he's so lazy, he's so irresponsible, why is he sleeping till 1 o'clock in the night? And that's my situation, for instance, and I put it into the column. Obviously, it's not my problem, it's my son's problem. Obviously, I become much lighter, and this number of problems that are there in my column has reduced. So I become more present to only my set of issues and I feel much lighter. So just take a moment to see the column that you've made and how much lighter it has become. Okay. Now the second point. So first is awareness. Awareness whether it's your problem or someone else's problem. Second thing, write down all the trash, all the junk. Well, now what is the junk? All the judgments that you have, all the complaints that you have. Which means, again, the same example. Suppose I have this, my son who's not waking up and I'm irritated because of that. And what's the kind of thoughts that are going on in my mind? He is so irresponsible. I don't like it. I'm constantly blaming him. I'm constantly judging him. All the trash, write that down. So take about 2 to 3 minutes to write down all your criticisms, judgments, complaints for others, especially. When you're writing down your trash, do not judge it. If it's trash, it's trash. Whatever the trash is, just write it down. Okay, we'll take another minute to finish this. Okay, so this was the second point, writing down the trash. What is the third point? Self inquiry, which means ask yourself a lot of questions. Is this 100% true? So, for instance, the same example of my son. Is this 100% true that he gets up at 1 p.m. every day? Of course not. When he has to go for his badminton or his football, he wakes up at 6 a.m. When he has an exam, he does get up. So he's not irresponsible, he's definitely responsible. So when you're asking yourself, is this 100% true? That is one question that you need to ask. What can I do about this? It's a self-empowering question. What can I do about this? So, for instance, the same example, my son is waking up at 1 p.m. What can I do about this? Stop nagging. I can say that to myself. Stop nagging. Take a chill pill. As simple as that. Just let him be. He's not a kid. What can I do? The third question, is this kind of thinking, is this type of thinking helping me? You need to ask yourself, is this really helping me? So when I'm telling myself, my son is irresponsible, he doesn't wake up at in the morning, he wakes up at 1 p.m., is this kind of thinking helping me? Obviously not. What can I do about it? So 3 questions. Is this 100% true? Which may or may not be. What can I do about this? Which is self-empowering question, because you definitely can do something. Third, is this helping me? Because if it's not helping me, why am I holding on to it? I can let go of it. And you can obviously ask many more questions, self-inquiry. So take about a minute or two to write down any kind of self-inquiry questions that you have for yourself. Take another minute to finish writing.
Geeta, could you please repeat the 3 questions? Is this
Yes.
100% true? What can I do about it?
So the 3 questions that I have specifically identified are, is this 100% true? Second question, what can I do about it? And the third question, is this helping me? Is this kind of thinking helping me? Or what am I doing? Is this helping me? And there could be many more questions.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'll be sharing the audio and the video any which ways on the group. So yeah. The fourth, I think, is awareness, writing down the trash, self-inquiry. The fourth thing that you need to do is shift perspective. Now, what is the meaning of this shift perspective? So when I change the way I look, what I see changes. Change the way you look at things. So for the same example, if I change my perspective about my son, like initially my perspective is what? He's irresponsible. He's always irresponsible. He's too lazy. But by doing these first 3 steps that we spoke about, probably I will be able to change my perspective about my son. No, he's really not that lazy. He's really not irresponsible. That's the way he wants to live his life. That's all. When I shift that perspective, almost everything that I look at changes. Hmm? That's absolutely a very essential step. Let me share this with a little story. Most of us have heard the story of David and Goliath. It's about this big giant. So Goliath is this, I don't know if I'm spelling it correctly, but this Goliath is a huge giant, and he's harassing all the villagers. And David is a small, tiny shepherd. So the villagers are terrified, and they go to David and say, "What can we do?" Because this Goliath is too big to hit. It's impossible. He's a huge giant. He is too big to hit, and we are terrified. So what does David say? He's not he's yes, he's too big to hit, but he's too big to be missed. So he kills the giant with a fling of stones. So the villagers' perspective was Goliath is too big to hit. David has shifted the perspective and said he's too big to miss. So, can you see how just this little perspective change can make a huge difference? Yeah. Another thing, another story maybe I can share. Most of us have heard about this five blind men and who was touching the elephants. Do you all know about this? So the five blind men who are touching the elephant, who's touching the trunk of the elephant, thinks it's a snake or something like that, and someone who's touching the ears, they think it's the pan. I mean, that story. So it's the whole perspective. So what you see is what happens to you. So shift your perspective. So let me recap. Each time you're going through a situation, step one is to ask yourself, is this my business? Become aware. Is this my business? And then draw three columns: my business, someone else's business, God's business. And especially when it is God's business, it's best to just surrender. Okay, this is just not in my hands. Let it be. I anyways can't handle it. Right? Second, write your trash, which means all the complaints and judgments that you have. Third step, self inquiry. Ask as many questions as you feel like. The fourth one, shift perspective. So these are the four things that you can do when you're facing a situation. So stay out of the business that is not yours. Hmm? So my mother used to say this very often. What was that? सबसे बड़ी बीमारी दुनिया क्या कहेगी दुनिया सारी. सबसे बड़ी बीमारी क्या क्या कहेगी दुनिया सारी या क्या सोचेगी दुनिया सारी. So when we take other people's opinions or other people's business as ours, obviously you're going to land into trouble. So I would like to end by saying this: instead of causing chaos and rocking someone else's boat, you need to row your own boat. So imagine if you're driving a car and you're looking at someone else's car and driving someone else's car also. How difficult it would be to drive two cars. But if I could concentrate on driving my own car, it'll become much easier, right? So I'm going to repeat that. Instead of causing chaos and rocking someone else's boat, can you row your own boat? Because that's when the ride will become smooth. Hmm? So let me just... So any questions? I'll wait for about 5 minutes for anybody to ask a question.